Hello. I was looking at my other video about the one where I said that I love working in tourism and why. And somebody made a comment, so I thought I'm going to do a video on this because it's something you don't really think about. And they was talking about the land grab that's coming into Scotland. Well, it's going to be all over the world, isn't it? It's going on in Australia, they said. And you were talking about these mobile home parks and how they con people with it and lure people in with high-priced static homes that you pay a lot of money for, and then you pay rent on top of that, and then somewhere down the line you just get sold out from under your feet. So you were saying that there's going to be a land grab in Scotland, or well, it is going on, and it's something you don't think about. So I thought I'll do a little bit of research on this. I worked in a place in Lochgoilhead a few years ago, and during that time that I don't mention, it went into liquidation because obviously it was really hard times because everything shut down, didn't it? And it got sold by a company called Cove Communities, and this is a US international operation. So I thought that's interesting because this was a family-run complex from 1967, and one family owned it, and then they sold up during that time and it went to a US corporation. Just down the road from me is a little island, and again private run island owned by the same family since the 60s. Prior to that it was a big estate. Again, that has sold, and this one has sold by Creation Gem, and that is a family-owned business from Hong Kong. And I thought, oh, that is really interesting. So that's two just that I know, and these both happened around the same sort of time. And I'm like, right, okay. So I thought I'm going to do a little bit more research on this. So the island down the road sold for 1 million, and they got another house on the island for another $1 million. So that's £2 million for an island with all these buildings and an hotel. So that's cheap. But the other one I was telling you about, which is a holiday park, sold for £100 million. Now what's interesting in that is how many people have that kind of money. It's not individuals generally. But then I look and think, right, in March of 2024, 3,315 abroad-owned businesses own businesses in Scotland, which equates to about 3% of the businesses. But there's somebody, and he's a Danish clothing billionaire called Anders Holk Poulsen. I can't say the name. And he is Scotland's biggest landowner, and he owns 221,000 acres in Scotland, and that includes more than 12 estates. 42,000 of those acres are in the Cairngorms. Now some campaigners, because I was looking at this, say fewer than 500 people own more than half of Scotland, and that is in private land, and many are foreigners. So think about this. So I went down into it even more, and it said 57% of rural land owned by private estates, 12.6 public bodies, 3.1% owned by communities, 2.5% by charities, and the remainder are smaller estates and farms. Now what I'm thinking is quite telling about all this is how we're not aware of who owns what. You seem to think when you live in a country that the locals own it, and when you're looking at it like this and you're looking at it on paper, you think most of them are not. Now when you've got this kind of money, we're talking millions and millions of pounds, they're not going for the little council houses, they're going for the land, they're going for the big chunks, because these are billionaires, millionaires, and they're going for the big chunks. Now when there's an event that goes on, like the one we went through a few years ago, what that did is it folded some businesses down because they couldn't operate, and so they were running at a loss. So some of them, like that one I'm telling you about, went into liquidation because they couldn't continue to go without all the customers. Interestingly enough, how these foreigners have come along and bought all the land. Now, during the last 5 years or so, I often go on the internet and look for land for sale, holiday parks for sale, caravan parks for sale, and I always do it just in case something comes up that's a total bargain. And what's interesting is these two that I've mentioned, the one where I worked and the island down the road from me, both of them were not advertised on any of the sites that I've seen. And the fact that they were both bought by foreigners tells me that this is all deliberate. Because why wasn't they both advertised in this country? I just find it very suspicious. And also, when you become like me, you start thinking all these things are preordained. So they're talking about the land grab now, and I was talking to a girl on Facebook who said this is going on in Ireland, and she said Ireland is becoming owned by China. And I'm thinking, right, but the same thing's happening. Now, this one I'm looking at in Scotland, it's not all China that's buying the land, it's a mixture of foreigners, but none of them have got investment into the culture of Scotland. These people are all outsiders just buying up all this land, but what are they doing with it? What I'm finding really, I don't know if I'm saying concerning or what, but a lot of the forests are getting sold off as well. Now again, I go on to all the sites that sell forest land, forestry for sale, and the ones that are advertised are often the little pockets of forest, the very small ones, like the little ones just by a roadside. But the ones that I'm looking at, they're like hundreds of acres. Who is buying them and knocking them all down? Now we know that the Forestry Commission own X amount, but we also know that there's a lot of private investors because they sell the timber, and they're supposed to regrow the timber, but you don't often see the trees getting planted after they've done it. So it's like they come in here and just destroying the land and doing what else with it. So I just think there's something quite bizarre going on here. Now, funny enough, you mentioned this as well, this subject, because this is what I've done, but a couple of days ago I bought a book, and it's called The Scottish Clearances, and I think it was from 1700 to 1800 and something, where they cleared all the Highlanders out. They got rid of everyone from the islands and the Highlands of Scotland. And who did it? It was the super rich, the wealthy, and they got rid of all these people. And who were these people? So quite a lot of them were farmers, small communities, people who lived on crofts, all gone, wiped off. So it's interesting you mention this because you can see it's happening. So the next part of your question was, so what are you going to do when this land gets taken over? And the answer is, I don't know, because I came to Scotland 10 years ago to get away from the rat race, and I found a niche way to live up here. But all these holiday parks are all reliant on the general public. If there's another disaster, whether it be disease or whether it be weather, and I'm not going to get political on it because you know what I'm like by now, accidental weather conditions, anything like that, and these places all fold up because you need to have your customers. Who's going to buy the land when it's all folded up if it isn't going to be able to be run as a business anymore? Especially the place I'm talking about where I used to work. if things like that happen, like say a big flood came and took all that down, who's going to come and buy that land after that? Because you'd have to reinvest it all and put loads of money into it as well as get the land. But I think it's all by design. I do. I think it's all set up many decades in advance, and we are in like the final stages of things getting put into place, but they've all been put into place behind the scenes for a long time. They don't just have a meeting on Monday. These, when I say they, you know who I mean as well. We're not talking about the people who lead the countries, allegedly. We're talking about the ones behind them. And these are the people you don't know. And I say people loosely as well, because we don't even know that. But there's a lot of stuff going on we're not aware of, and it's almost like Pandora's box, you know. You're going in and you keep finding all these little secrets, and you keep thinking, you think you know it all, and then somebody raises a point and you're like, I'm going to go and have a look, and then you think, oh my gosh, I didn't know that most of Scotland, or half of Scotland, was owned by other people, and this is the rural land. When these landowners come and take all this land, what are they doing with it? They want money. If you're investing in land, what are you going to invest in? A few cows, sheep and chickens and a little croft? Or are you going to bang one of these really bad housing estates up that you can throw up overnight basically and then get loads of money back? So what are they doing with this land? It's very, very worrying, because like you said, the farmland is getting bought up as well. And when that happens, we've got no food. And it's alright putting loads of cheap housing on the land, but what do we eat? So where do you go? Your plan B, if you're doing a niche job like me, where do you go? Well, I'm not going to worry about that now, because I do believe that I am guided through my life. And I think that I found a way to navigate through the system as it is now. And I don't know how I do it sometimes, but it's like this little voice says, go left today instead of right. And I think when you listen to that little voice, you get guided out or around things. So the answer is, right now, I don't know. But I'm not stressing about it right now. But I am also aware of it now, because it was brought up, and I'm looking, thinking, that's very interesting. So what do you think about all this? You know, you can say London's the same. Let's go for London as well. London, a lot of the multi-billionaires, millionaires down there are foreign, and they come and buy all the stock off the market. But the prices go up through the roof. They've got the money to pay premium prices for stuff, which puts the little man out of any chance of getting any kind of property. So the old land ends up becoming owned by the mega rich, while the poor have to rent it back, and it's always for a premium that they can't afford to pay. So what happens in the long run there? You've got to look at it down the line. The way things are going, I almost envisage, right, we're all in the middle of this circle, and the circle starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and you're trying to navigate your way round this circle, try to find a way through one event and the next one, because there's so many things thrown at us that sometimes you can't even get your breath before the next one comes. But that circle gets closer and closer and closer, and then what happens when it closes in on you? Who's free to do whatever they want then? The mega rich have got the most protection, and the man at the bottom, the working class, even the middle class are getting eradicated, so they're going to end up being working class, and then you're going to get right down to the working class poor. Rather than the working class, it's going to be the real poor, like Dickens times. So I just find that really interesting. I mean, how does someone even end up owning 221,000 acres, and how does you become a billionaire? What do you have to be a billionaire? How many people have you trodden on to get that? What kind of person is it? does this person come and plant forests and subsidise farmers and things like that? I'm going to do some research onto that person, because I suggest that they don't. And the fact that they're saying fewer than 500 people own more than half of Scotland, I think is really worrying. Because if that few own that much, how long will it take before they've taken it all? And the fact that I'm reading this book about the history of the Scottish clearances says that we're just going back round on this cyclic wheel of, we keep doing the same thing over and over again. So you have your time of freedom, alleged freedom, and the good times, and then it goes right back to, right, we're taking it all away from you again. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to keep my eyes open. I think when it comes to stuff like this, if you want to know how to get through the worst of times, go and get a job on this land that's owned by these billionaires, because I very much doubt that their land is going to go up in flames or get flooded, because they own it. They're going to flood and do fires on the people who, the little people. So when it's all gone and they can't do what with it because it's just ruined all the crops and everything else, then these other people are going to come along and go, we'll buy it off you. And that's how they'll end up with 100% of the land. Don't trust them. Don't trust nobody. And the more I look into things, the more I'm like, right, I'm not going to worry about it, because I do believe there's always an answer. You don't know what it is right now, but you are always guided. And you know, this is another thing, right? This is why it's important that everybody has some peace. No people, no gadgets, nothing around you. Just sit in total silence for as long as you can. And it's quite telling what happens to you when you do it, because a lot of people are yearning for peace. And that's where you find the answers, because there's no chaos there. You get your head cleared and you start hearing that little voice inside, because you're just on your own. And it's a really powerful place to be. And isn't it funny how they bang everybody up in these tiny, tiny little estates, all on top of each other, all with so much anger and poverty. And then how do you thrive in that? And people go out to the countryside and it's getting owned by all these. At the moment, Scotland has got the right to roam. So you could go on all those acres, apart from the garden areas and stuff, you can go on it. But what if they turn it into England and say you can't come on it now? There's no more right to roam. Where are you going to go then? And if these billionaires own all this, they can do that. So is that going to come next? I don't know. But anyway, I'll leave it there for now. But it was an interesting observation that I didn't even think about. But if you've got any more questions you want me to do a little bit of research on, I will, because I love this sort of stuff. Because it makes you think, just when you get complacent and you think, I've found a niche, and I have. Don't rely on it forever, because you just never know when it's going to be taken away. So you've always got to be aware of what's going on, but don't fear it, because if you get that quiet place inside, right, you will be led to the right place and the right time at the right time. So I am going to go for now, and I will see you in the next one.